Are you a business owner that avoids conflict, especially internally with your team members, whether that's to keep them accountable, whether that's to address their underperformance, whether that's just to address things that you know are the elephant in the room? So if you have trouble with this aspect of delegation, you're going to love this breakdown of the clip that I'm about to show. It is taken from my Joyful Profits podcast. And this is a podcast where I bring on business owners and then live on air, I coach them through delegation issues, such as the one that I describe now. And I do it from the perspective of mapping out which internal identity and leadership aspects they have to upgrade in order to make more stress-free, joyous, peaceful profit. If you can't delegate, that's not really going to happen. So in this particular clip, you're basically going to see me walk an entrepreneur through three things. And I'm just looking down at my notes. So number one is going to be how to get to the root of why you avoid conflict. Okay. Number two is going to be why having this desire to be on level with regards to your team members, I am their peer, I don't want to be overbearing to them, why that's actually costing you, even though it's a nice sentiment. And then number three, why this desire for a joyous working environment, I don't want to be angry, I just want to work in a nice environment. It's great, and it is also something that's enabling poor performance and fueling further this fear of conflict. Okay, so check it out. The entrepreneur that I am coaching live on air in this instance, he's a successful tech entrepreneur from Britain, came onto the podcast because he had these management issues. So check it out, and then in my commentary, you'll see the pieces that I just talked about previously. All right, on to the clip. What does it mean to be in conflict? What does it mean about you to be in conflict or confrontation?
I think the first thing is I have a level, I work with people as peers. So suddenly you have to lift yourself away from being a peer to be able to do things. That's one thing. What does it mean for me? It's just uncomfortable. There's no doubt about it. It's not particularly the way I want to work. So I like a joyful environment. And yeah, it's an interesting thing because there's no natural energy coming from me to tell people that's a problem. I think they know. You can see it in the result.
So the first thing I want to highlight here is the original question that I asked Hutton, which is what does it mean in general to be in conflict? And specifically that aspect of meaning. Because when it comes down to doing this type of work where you are working on your identity and then subsequently working on your leadership to be the kind of business owner that can naturally go into the business to create more stress-free profits, you have to get to the underlying root issue of what's actually creating the profit and time leaks that traditional operational implementations can't overcome. So going back to the meaning is essentially what is the oftentimes subconscious association that I have with this one particular thing. And if you look at how Hutton answers that, he answers it in a bunch of different ways. So number one, he mentioned, I want to make sure that I'm with peers. When I'm working with peers, I don't have this hierarchical relationship with them. And I'm just looking down at my notes. I want to be on par and level with them. I don't want to be overbearing and have them be my minions. And by the way, this all makes sense, and I'm going to go deeper into it. I prefer joyous environments. I'm not one that wants to be in anger. I'm not one that wants to yell. I want to work in an environment that's collaborative and joyous. Also great. I'm going to go into that, why that could be a blind spot. And he mentions this idea of there's no energy. I'm just looking at the transcript here. There's no energy in terms of energy that's coming from me to keep them accountable to the results. It's just this playful, joyous energy, but you can see the results are lacking. So something's wrong, but we're not addressing the elephant in the room. Okay. So here's how this breaks down, right? Because we talked about meaning and we talked about his answer. So his answer reveals that his internal associations, because oftentimes why these things are a blind spot is because they're operating subconsciously. So I have a feeling that something is off, but we can't actually verbalize what that's about, versus I have no idea this is going on. It's completely unconscious. So for him, it's more on the subconscious level. So we're trying to bring that up into conscious awareness and begin to poke and prod it, like inspect it. Like, what is the actual truth that my behaviors are operating on? Because you will never operate beyond your particular beliefs. In this instance, there are some inherent beliefs that he reveals. So number one, I got to work with peers and I want to be at level with them. Okay. So first things first, yes, you do want to have a respectable, friendly relationship with your team members. I'm not going to argue against that. Like, why would you want to work anywhere else? The very reality of the dynamic between team member and employee is hierarchical by nature. Meaning, if I am the boss and I'm the business owner that is signing your checks, I hold up my end of that agreement, which is, I'm going to pay you on time. I'm going to give you the resources you need to do your work, and et cetera, et cetera. And on the flip side, the agreement that the employee makes is, in exchange for those resources and that check, I will deliver to you, to the best of my abilities, these particular results, these particular outcomes, so that you can leverage them to grow the business. Like, that is the inherent dynamic of the relationship, which I know sounds obvious, but now you got to put into the perspective of essentially people-pleasing patterns and a fear of confrontation. Internally, because these people-pleasing and fear of confrontation patterns, they are actually the result of like long-seated, generally childhood woundings. They are operating to optimize, I have to be friendly with everybody, because when I am friendly with everybody and everybody likes me, then I am safe. Then I am secure. Then nobody gets angry. Nobody's going to lash out at me. Okay. That is the kind of thinking that is very conducive to children, because that's how they can ensure survival. Children have absolutely nothing to do with running an effective business, yet so many of us, and I will put my hand up here as well, because I've had these instances in other contexts. When you bring those childlike parts into business, it creates an absolute mess. Why? Because you, as the business owner, ultimately end up paying for it, right? Because the buck stops with you. That is the price of admission for being the leader, for being the business owner. You are the one that ends up paying for underperformance. You are the one that ends up compensating with regards to your time and your effort for whatever the lack of results your team member delivers. And you are the one that ultimately compensates for either trying to get new clients or trying to save clients, or whatever the repercussions of that underperformance are, that could have been addressed with confronting and keeping the team member accountable. There are very real consequences to ignoring that particular hierarchy of, I sign your checks, I expect you to deliver the equivalent value of what I pay you for, right? That is actually what makes you peers. It's not, we're both friendly and this is a great environment and we can all be jolly and do all the things. That's part of why employees stay. That's part of why you want to build a team and you care about your team. But it's got nothing to do with the effectiveness, the objective effectiveness of the actual business situation. And if you're not addressing your own identity and leadership limits, then you're always going to make distorted decisions with regards to what that looks like. That is why in this particular clip, I asked, what is the meaning? Because that actually reveals the subconscious script that's operating in him that's causing him to avoid confrontation. And if you look at the other things like, well, I want a joyful environment, and then this is not really reflected in the results in terms of like, we're still subpar in results. Well, yeah, because subconsciously you're prioritizing for being liked. You're not prioritizing for being effective. Okay. And this ultimately is what creates this idea, what I call the profit and time leaks. Okay. So these are very real expenses that you're not going to see on your P&L statement, but you're definitely going to feel in terms of like, I'm working so hard. I'm so stressed. Why do I not have any time? Why do I not have the profit that's actually going to fund and give me the freedom in my life? So If you want to get to the root of what those are, my Peaceful Profits Roadmap basically assesses 64 stress drivers that are responsible for these particular profit and time leaks, like the one that I diagnosed for Hutton. If that's of interest, just check out the link anywhere below here. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.